welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'll be showcasing the 0-second cooldown Quicksand-Nado build. This video is the predecessor to the old low cooldown Quicksand build video, which no longer functions correctly due to the recent Gunslinger perk rework. I'll be explaining the mechanics, its advantages, disadvantages first. So, first of all, let's discuss Quicksand. As you might know, Quicksand activates when a weapon art is used, which then creates a swirling sand vortex that pulls enemies toward the center. Quicksand alone is already a strong crowd control perk, but it does have some limitations. For example, bosses like Lord Frog can escape the swirl, and some enemies like Toadzerker may not get fully stunned. Players can also sometimes push the enemies if they have high knockback. With the help of Tornado, bosses are always pulled to the center, and the stun effect is much greater than Quicksand. Not to mention, players wouldn't be able to push the enemies outside Tornado unless they have a very high knockback. Plus, with a 0-second cooldown, you'll be able to trap more enemies in different areas fast. Previously, Tornado and Quicksand combo wasn't that viable because of the high Cassie King requirement. Not to mention that replacing one Gunslinger could heavily increase the cooldown. But with this new update, the caster perk's cooldown reduction now applies directly to the weapon art, which is much better than the previous Gunslinger perk. This allows you to use 2-3 pieces of Cassie King armor. Additionally, with the new ring infusion feature, you can equip 2 lucky rings at once, which helps boosting your chance of spawning a tornado. Now, there are a couple of disadvantages to this build. First, it has a low DPS output, so support from others may be needed. Second, if you're hit with a debuff, the cooldown can jump to around 4 seconds, ruining the Quicksand chain because it cancels the emotion's cooldown reduction. To counter this, you can use Cleansing Rune as caster affects rune cooldown, or avoid getting debuffed in the first place. Now, let's get on with the showcase. For the blade, use the Sandglaive to get the Quicksand perk. For the handle, there are 2 options. Either the crude magic handle from the previous video or the Gust Iron handle for increased weapon art cooldown reduction. For the weapon art, choose Gale Assault for better mobility. For the race, use High Elf to gain a 25% cooldown reduction. For the guild, choose Cursed Guild for the increased perk potency, which increases the tornado spawning chance and improve casters' cooldown reduction. For the helmet, you have 2 options. First is the Emotions, which will give you higher cooldown reduction than Mageling, but can be interrupted by debuff, or Mageling, which has no drawbacks, but might give you a 1-2 second cooldown instead. For the chestplate and leggings, use Mageling for more caster perk. For the ring, use a lucky ring, and for the rune, either a cleansing rune to cleanse debuff if you are using the emotions, or a combat roll rune for mobility. For the enchant, use 5x warped enchantments. For the helmet infusion, add another the emotions or Mageling. For the chestplate and leggings, add 2 Cassie King. And finally, on the ring infusion, add another lucky ring. Now, I'll show this build in action in Corrupt Frog Dungeon. And there you have it. One of, if not the best crowd control build in Voxlblade. This build is really fun to use, and I would recommend you try it out as it is quite cheap and requires no double enchant to use. That's it for today's video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. As always, keep voxelblading.